Thank you for coming. I'm Father Dan Crosby. I'm a Capuchin, originally from Fond du Lac, and I'm in Detroit now. And my first year in the order was in Detroit, and because that was where we had the novitiate, and it was the same year that was Father Solanus' last year. So for most of that year, I lived with Father Solanus. And as I told the people at St. Joe's at the Masses this weekend, I am living proof, you're looking at it right here, that the fact that you live with a saint doesn't make you a saint. And that is 100% true. However, I learned much from Father Solanus, and have tried in my life to unravel some of this. What people remember most about Solanus, and you've heard some of this here, is the miracles. The miracles of healing. And for example, if you go to Detroit these days, you can hardly go to a parish in Detroit without somebody coming to you and saying that their mother, their grandmother knew Father Solanus, and that they or their mother, grandmother is alive or was alive because of Father Solanus. You heard all of that, much, and we heard that as novices. I will tell you one story myself that I heard in relationship to the soup kitchen that he helped to initiate. And when we were novices, some of the farmers in the area would fairly frequently set aside a whole acre of fruits or vegetables, and we would love that because that would be an opportunity for us as novices to get out of the novitiate and to pick the vegetables, etc. So this particular time, I recall that the head of the soup kitchen was Ray McDonough, and he had been from the very beginning. And in addition to the hearty mulligan stew that they would give to the people, they also gave, throughout the day, they gave bread to the people. And that would usually go from 9 o'clock to 4 o'clock in the afternoon, non-stop, this giving out of bread. And I can remember Ray telling me that one time, maybe at 10 o'clock or 10:30, there were only 27 loaves of bread left, and he knew that there would be no deliveries whatsoever that day. And he also knew that the line would keep on going until 4 o'clock. So he said to the staff, well, let's go over to the monastery and ask Father Solanus to come over and to bless the bread. So they did. They went to Father Solanus, and in his typical simplicity and just genuine faith, Father Solanus, you heard a little bit of that, his voice. He had a high-pitched voice because he had had diphtheria when he was a teenager, which also took 2 of his sisters. And so his voice was rather high-pitched. And so Father Solanus said, I don't have to go over to the soup kitchen to bless the bread. I can bless the bread from here. And he blessed the bread from here. And Ray McDonough, I will never forget the conviction with which he told me. And so we went back to the soup kitchen, and we gave out bread. And he said, and I will swear on a stack of Bibles that no delivery truck came all throughout the day. And I will swear on a stack of Bibles that we gave out bread until 4 o'clock. And I will swear on a stack of Bibles that when we finished, there were 27 loaves of bread left. We heard all these stories, and they were remarkable. And they not seem to, they put Father Solanus, unfortunately, into another realm that I couldn't relate to. I mean, you're never going to have that said of me. And in addition to that, we could see his prayer life. And that wasn't normal either. At least not our normal. For example, we would go down to morning prayer at 5:15 in the morning, and very frequently, not always, but very frequently, we would see Father Solanus kneeling there without even letting his arms on the bench in front of him. And he'd be kneeling there and he'd be absorbed. And we novices would sometimes try to kind of see if we could make a difference in his prayer. So we kind of, on the way to our place, we'd walk close to him so that our habit would touch his hands, and then to see if he'd wake up and discover, well, not wake up, but, if he would be distracted, and he never was. Totally absorbed. Totally absorbed. But we knew this man was holy. And all the Capuchins knew that this man was holy. And we have always said that if the church declares him holy, a saint, and this step right before it, blessed, that'll be wonderful. But it doesn't change the fact that he was a saint with a small s. We knew it, and it is a joy and it is a delight to know that now what we knew and what we experienced, the Holy Father is saying, I want the whole church to experience this, to come to know that this man was holy. It's marvelous. I myself, and undoubtedly most of us who have lived with him, had to have our own conversion, however, from this original experience. As I said, initially, Solanus was so holy that he was in a different realm. And I would never be like that. I would never have miracles that would be coming from me. Solanus, incidentally, would never, ever say that the miracles came from him. Never, ever, ever would he say that. he would always say, when people had asked him to pray, he would always ask them to also pray, and if they could, to give this small offering that you heard a little bit about here to the Seraphic Mass Association. That was, in those days, it was 50 cents. And that way, those who did that, they were enrolled in all the masses that the Capuchins celebrated throughout the world, and they were remembering the missions, the poor people. And so Solanus would practically always ask people in the midst of their pain and their difficulty to remember the poor, the missions. And then stories began to develop. You know, when we went to Solanus and asked him to pray, and he enrolled us in this Seraphic, this stuff happened. And it was not a surprise to Solanus. And he never, ever would say or think that he did it. He would say, and we who lived with him never heard anything so frequently from his lips as, "God is so good. God is so good." He would hear these stories, and but God is so good. And those people had so much faith. And look at what happens when you have faith. And you are concerned about the poor and the missions. Look at their faith. So, Solanus would never, ever take responsibility or would ever get a big head about this wonderful stuff. He would acknowledge it. Yeah, there's wonderful things that happen. But God is so good, and people have so much faith. That's what's going on. That's what's going on. And so I, and many of us, we put too much emphasis on this external stuff as if the miracles made him holy. The miracles didn't make him holy. It was his faith that made him holy. And that is what I can identify with. And increasingly, as I have gotten older and have had more time to reflect deeply on the gift that Solanus was to me and to all of us, that is the invitation. Acknowledge the miracles. Acknowledge this depth of prayer that you probably will never get to. But what's the core? What's the core? And you can get to that. And that is basically what I would like to share with you tonight. Yeah, there's miracles. And they were marvelous. And they were many. And he had a prayer life that was profound. I can't relate completely to either one of them. I try to pray, but I'm distracted. I will never have miracles. What can I learn from Solanus? And I'd like to share with you the two main things that mean so so much to me, and I think can mean much to everybody. When people ask me, "You lived with Solanus. What did you learn from him?" There's two things that I always say. And the first is the word real. Solanus was real. There is, and I can have it, and I had it as a novice, and I can still have it, and there's too many of us Catholics that try to become holy by slapping on stuff from the outside. You know, maybe the more rosaries I say, or the more I go to church, slap them on these holy things, which are all good. But that kind of holiness is external. And no amount of holy things is going to make us holy inside, unless there's a change inside. Doing all this stuff from the outside is like putting on, we're getting ready for winter, and maybe today, which was colder, we went to our closets and we got out a warmer coat, and we'll have to get warmer coats. Well, you put that on, and it's better, but it doesn't change you. Solanus' holiness was never simply slapping on stuff from the outside. It was an inside job. And that's why the word real keeps coming back to me from Solanus. He was real. He really believed that God loved him. And he really believed that God equally loved everybody else. And he really tried to let that in and change his entire life. He was real. Solanus, all of us who lived with him, could say, Solanus never, in the way I've been talking about it, Solanus never tried to act holy. He never tried to put on a front. Do you think that how I'm doing is kind of impressive? Never, ever, ever was that from Solanus. It was just real. God loves me. And this is real. And he loves everybody else. And you are good. You are loved. You are cherished. And I have to treat you, I want to treat you the way God treats you. And I want to let this not just be a notion in my head, but a reality in my hands and feet. And that was the core of why he was so absorbed in prayer. God is real. His love is real. And that's why he could say so often, God is so good. God is so good. Deo gratias. Deo gratias. Nothing put on. Slapped on. No front. No attempt to look holy, to be impressive. He just believed in God's love with every ounce of his existence. And God's love for everybody, as I said. He let that in. Now you see, that's the beginning. I can do that. You can do that. I'm never going to have miracles. I'm never going to be so absorbed in prayer that I won't notice somebody coming up and brushing up against me. But I can do this. God is real. His love, that's real. For me, and I don't deserve this. And it's there for everybody. Well, live like that. That's the first message that I get from Solanus. And it helps me. Don't get caught up in the miracles. Don't get caught up in those externals. They're there, and they're impressive. But they can remove him from my everyday life. Go to the essentials, to the core. How real is God in your life? Do you really allow his love to get into your life? And his love not just for you, but for everybody else, including the people you don't like or who are not. Do you let it? You can do it. It's the same reality. That's holiness. The second thing flows from that. When people ask me, when they learn I lived with Father Solanus, what have you learned from Father Solanus? The first thing is what I've just finished. He was real. And I want to be real. Not fake, not put on, not trying to go around, just be real. As real as Solanus was. And the second thing I share with people is a word that I heard from Solanus more than any other word. And it's the word appreciate. And it flows from what we've just talked about. Solanus would say, if we'd only appreciate our faith, if we'd only appreciate what it means to be a Capuchin, if we'd only appreciate each other. Now, when all of us have used the word appreciate, I appreciate the fact that you're here tonight, or I appreciate your birthday card that you sent me. Appreciate. But that's not how Solanus would say it. And that's why it has stayed with me. When Solanus said the word appreciate, he would linger over it, the word, as if he was tasting it when he was saying it. If we'd only appreciate. It was like honey coming from his lips. Like he was tasting even the appreciate. When the way he said it made me go deeper. And for the first time in my life, I came to realize that the word precious is right there at the heart of appreciate. If we'd only appreciate our faith. It's like he was telling me and keeps telling me, you know, don't just have the faith. I automatically go like this because so many of us Catholics, so many of us priests, so many of us religious, we believe all this stuff. But too often, we don't appreciate enough. And it stays here. We're Catholics. We're priests. We're religious from the neck up. The trouble with us, and I'm quoting, and I'll tell you that a story. The trouble with us is that we don't appreciate. When we appreciate the fact that God is real, that God came to us, to me, who don't deserve this, and that he actually died for us, and that he's there in the Eucharist and comes to us. Do you appreciate that? Or do you believe it? When we appreciate, as Solanus taught me, it has to go deeper. I can remember on Christmas night, not Christmas Eve, Christmas night, my first Christmas in the order, and it was his last Christmas alive. I was going down to, after supper, to our community social, and everything was dark. And in Detroit, we have our friar's chapel at the wall where the altar is. There's two doors there, and that opens up to a larger public chapel. So everything was locked out there. And I, on my way to the community recreation, I went to make a visit to the Blessed Sacrament. And when I was in our chapel, I could hear this squeaky noise coming from the big chapel. And I knew exactly what it was. But I had to open the door to see it for myself. And there, up in the choir loft, with just a tiny light shining on him in this dark chapel, December 25th, was Father Solanus playing Christmas carols on his violin to the Christ child that was in the crib. And nobody would have known that if I hadn't opened that door. But that was Solanus. He wasn't there to impress people, to let people know, you see what I'm doing? And it kind of makes you think I'm holy, doesn't it? He appreciated, look at what God did for me. And I want to play him some Christmas carols. Do you appreciate? If we'd only appreciate what a difference it would make, it would get us out of our heads and into our hearts and into our guts and into our hands and feet the way it did with Solanus. If we only appreciate. I'll tell you another story of that choir loft, which is humorous, that says the same thing. We novices, after we had our own Mass in our own little chapel, we would sing for the High Mass. This was 1956, for the High Mass that was in the public chapel, and we would be up in that choir loft singing. Now, this particular day, Solanus happened to be sitting right in front of me. He loved to sing, just as he loved to play the violin, and because of his high-pitched voice, he couldn't sing very well, any more than he could really play the violin real well, but it didn't stop him. And that's wonderful, so many of us have the idea, incidentally, that, if you don't have a good voice, well then shut up. Chesterton once said, anything worth doing is worth doing poorly. Well, this is the only voice I've got. And does it glorify God? Well, yes. Well, then sing. Play the violin. That's Solanus. So Solanus was in front of us, me. He loved to sing. And the priest that had the Mass and was preaching was our Father Cuthbert, who was quite a character in his own right, and later became Archbishop in Izmir, Turkey, as one of the 7 churches of the Apocalypse. Its original name that's in the Apocalypse is Smyrna. Well, anyway, this is before he was Archbishop. And Cuthbert knew that all the novices were up there in the choir loft, and he also knew that in those days the novitiate was pretty tight, and we would laugh at the drop of a hat. And so I have no idea what the gospel was about. I have no idea of what the message of the homily was about, but he was telling this story, and I don't even remember what the story was supposed to say, but he told a story about this farmer and his donkey, except that instead of using the word donkey, he used the word ass. This farmer and his ass. Well, more than likely, you have not ever heard that word from the pulpit. Here it's 2017. Well, this was 1956, and we are hearing this story about this farmer and his ass, and we are breaking up in laughter. And I'm sitting right behind Father Solanus, and in those days, my laugh was more of a snort than a laugh, and he could hear me. And so, I will never forget this. This is exactly what happened. He turned around to talk to me, and he wasn't really exactly looking, but he was talking to me, and he said, "The trouble with us, not you, the trouble with us is that we don't appreciate what he's trying to tell us." And of course, that's 100% true. I don't know what he was trying to tell me. You see, I'm up there on the surface, right? The externals, the surface. And they're so funny. Solanus got straight to the core, right? Of what the message was. I don't know what the message was. The trouble with us if we did appreciate what he's trying to tell us, we wouldn't think it's so funny. Now, I'd like to say that my conversion experience happened right at that moment when he said that. But instead, I have to say, I only laughed some more. But I have never forgotten that. The trouble with us, Catholics, priests, religious, is that we don't appreciate enough. Too often we're on the surface. And too often as a novice, I was on the surface externally with miracles. And one of our guys, and the way he prayed. The trouble with us is that we don't appreciate. We don't go deeper beyond the surface, beyond the externals, beyond the words, I believe in one God, the Father. The trouble with us is that we don't appreciate what he's trying to tell us. If we did appreciate it, we wouldn't think it's so funny, meaning we wouldn't be staying on the surface, right? Those are the two things that keep coming to me, that help me to get beyond the externals, which are marvelous, but I can't relate to them. The miracles, the absolute absorption in prayer. But I can relate to these two things. And they're a challenge enough for my entire life. Just be real, Dan Crosby, the way Solanus was real. Nothing put on. God is real. And his love is real. In the midst of junk, in the midst of difficulties, in the midst of misunderstanding, which he had, God is real. And you are loved. And everybody else is too. Take that in. Don't put on anything from the outside. Take that in. You're capable of it. It's the same reality. Be real the way Solanus was. And then secondly, if we'd only appreciate, if we'd only let what we believe in, God's love, God's dying for us, God coming to us and making us his dwelling place in the Eucharist, if we only appreciate what a difference it would make in who I am and how we relate to each other. Solanus once said, the world will never, how did he put it? To advance in knowledge, this is Solanus, to advance in knowledge of how much God loves us, etc., but to advance in knowledge and appreciation is to advance in the one science necessary, the science of holiness. To know, not here, but down here, and to appreciate. Put those together, and we're all going to be holy. And that's what Solanus teaches me and us. Thank you very much. I will tell you before I ask if you have some questions. To get to this point of being beatified, you have to have a miracle that passes all the stages, including Rome, Well, I'll tell you about what the miracle was. There have been loads of miracles, and you heard some of them, in his life and after his life. But this is the one that finally passed the grade in Rome and brought him to this point. This is revolves around a woman from Panama. And that makes me glad, happy. First of all, it's not from Detroit or from Wisconsin or some Capuchin. It's from Panama. She doesn't even know English. Her name is Paula. And 5 years ago, you see, our men, our Capuchins, lived and worked in Panama for a good while. This woman was born with a skin disease, which is interesting because Solanus died with this skin disease. He had this bleeding eczema all over his body. Well, she had this disease where her skin wouldn't shed dead skin cells, and it's called ichthyosis vulgaris or something like that. And ichthyes is the Latin or Greek name for fish. And so what would happen is that they give it that name because her skin would look like the scales of a fish all over her body. And she lived with that. It was painful. It was not pleasant to look at. But she still was able to function. She was a teacher. And she helped our men in the missions. And so she came to Detroit one time to see one of our friars, Joseph Timmers, who had been in Panama and then was asked to go to Saudi Arabia. And he was in Detroit from Saudi Arabia. And so, in addition to seeing him and the other friars that she knew, she wanted to visit Solanus' tomb and to pray. And so she did. And some of you who would know that have been there would know. You have his tomb is there, and then right near the tomb there is little pads of paper that you can write your intentions on, and then you bring them and you put them on the tomb, and then you kneel down and pray. And thousands and thousands and thousands of people do that, and she did that like everybody else. And she's praying for all these people that she brought in her heart. And when she finished doing that, she wasn't praying for herself at all. When she got up, she heard the words, "Well, what about yourself?" So she knelt down and started praying to Father Solanus and the Lord for healing for her own condition. And when she was doing that, she could feel waves of healing warmth come through her whole body. And she knew she was being healed. And she got up and she went to her room. She was staying in our friary and took off handfuls of dead skin. And she has had baby skin ever since. It was instantaneous. That's a miracle that allowed Solanus to become beatified. You couldn't contradict it or say it was, well, just